Les Elligus has arrived. How are you, Les?
I am very well this morning, Jeremy, and you?
I am fine. Thank you for all the comments that you sent me. They're all incredibly good and thought-provoking.
The world's a marvellous spectrum of information and what's going on at the moment. It's a lot of things happening, a lot of things in people's lives. Christmas is only 3 weeks away. We are 4 weeks before the end of the year. New year on the horizon.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I know that every day on the podcast you talk about special events and diary dates and dates. And
yeah,
it's interesting.
Some of them are really weird.
Well, it is weird in the context that I know many people, listeners would be aware that John Lennon was shot. And it was actually this day. Yeah. 43 years ago. But I was doing a little bit of a fact-finding tour on that issue, and he had made the comment that the Beatles would be more popular than Jesus Christ. Now, I'm not quite sure if that's eventuated, but certainly Mr. Chapman, who shot Lennon, and apparently shot him 4 times, but actually fired 5 bullets in the back, he was sentenced to 20 years to life jail. Next year in February will be his 13th parole hearing.
I don't think they're going to let him out. I don't believe they'll let him out.
No, I don't think so either. And nor should they.
No. There's a little bit here on John Lennon. Now Daddy is part of God. This is Sean Lennon, his son. Now Daddy is part of God. I guess when you die, you become much more bigger. Then, well, you're part of everything. Christmas is heaven. Banner outside the Dakota building. Christmas is heaven. Anyway, before his death, John Lennon told Julian that a feather floating across the room would be a signal that he was still around.
And yet would some might say, Jeremy, that Lennon treated his son appallingly.
Oh, yes, I can imagine. I mean, you look at all of those stars that have ended up writing books, or actually their children writing books about how awful their big-name mother or father was during their upbringing. They I don't know whether it's just taking advantage of dad or mum's fame, or they are really, truly resentful of being given a really probably privileged upbringing.
It's a complex situation.
Do you remember what was her name? Wrote the book about Joan Crawford, Mother Dearest or something?
Yes.
Mother Dearest, yeah.
But it was interesting the other night on Sky, Marsha Hines was interviewed. And she's a delightful lady. At the age of 70, she still looks a treat.
Yep.
And she's just apparently released a new album and without any instrumentation. So it's just her voice, which is a remarkable feat because she has still a wonderful voice. Yeah. And you look at her exemplary life and contribution to society, and then by contrast one can say not quite the same for her daughter. Because she's not necessarily in the same stamp as the mother, and you think, what happened there? And that's often the case. I think now we have to probably be more parents now. Young parents need to be more aware of what's being, I call social engineering. Yeah. And when it's an easy concept to say that the government will offer earlier childcare so that the men and women who are the carers for their children can go to work so they can pay their bills and their mortgage and live, essentially.
But the moment the government gets involved, the cost of childcare goes through the roof.
Well, it becomes a taxpayer-funded exercise, and then a question that you and I and realists would always say is, where's the money going to come from? And that becomes then the perpetual question of how these things are budgeted for. It's like the NDIS. How's it budgeted for? And it's not really.
It's not budgeted for.
It's not catered for one little bit, and it's just exploding.
Well, the story that you get is so weird that they thought there would be probably 20 or 30,000 people who were severely and for their entire lifetime disabled. And that number is now 630,000. And Bill Shorten, they're on television last night, making out that this was a big surprise. They had no idea. Well, they must have had an idea because the disability support pension is about the same, 640,000.
Yes.
And you can't tell me there ain't some double dipping going on there.
Well, I look generally speaking at our society and the way government runs its part of the show versus the commercial sector, and almost currently every segment of government instrumentality that is caring for our society, whether it be early learning to aged care and anything in between, education, everything is broken. And talking about education, when the latest OECD data comes out and we find out that Australia has slipped back now for the 15th consecutive year in science, maths and reading.
Yeah.
And then, it wasn't that long ago that Kevin Rudd, illustrious Kevin Rudd, had the program Education Revolution. And then you say to yourself, well, hang on.
What happened?
How much dough was pumped into it? How much activity and energy? And what is the end result? The end result is not there.
If you're on a campaign program to recruit teachers into the left-thinking fold, I mean, I would have thought that most teachers would have held Mr. Rudd in high esteem.
Well, look, no doubt. I go back to this issue of social engineering. I'm a product of Monash University in Melbourne. Yeah. And, back in the 70s when I was there, when you walked through the student common grounds, you didn't have to literally have a joint in your hand and smoke the illegal drug. All you had to do was inhale, because the common ground, because it was under federal jurisdiction, the state coppers couldn't come on board. Yeah. So everyone was happily smoking their pot, amongst other things, and it was just that grey-blue haze, and all you had to do was inhale and you'd be happy for it. But at that time, circa Vietnam or post-Vietnam War, there were people like Albert Langer running around the campus. They were being educated by the government, but they were rebel people. They were the fringe dwellers, and let's say politely, they were the counterculture people.
Yeah.
But those people then became educators within the system. And if you look at, again, under the umbrella of social engineering, when you have people who are radical or have radical ideas and then they become the educators, what do you think is going to happen?
I think
they're just going to pass their views on to the children.
It'll be indoctrination, not education. They'll come out with all these ideas, but they won't be able to read or write.
Yes.
Or add up.
Or think, Jeremy. I think the problem is logical thinking.
You've got to think.
And that funnel, which is the brain that takes information in, between the lug holes, takes the information in, has to be processed.
Yeah.
And the clever people process information and get on with things and move forward. But if you don't process and you take things for granted, it's like the Minderoo Foundation, which Jay Weatherall is their, I think, PR director.
Yes.
Run by Twiggy, part of Twiggy's operation, that their slogan is, and it's being advertised fairly frequently now, going back to this childcare concept, thrive by three.
Thrive by three.
Which is the slogan, but that's the concept, that let's have the kids into early education at the age of 3 years old.
Yeah.
I immediately say you're taking the kids away from their parents.
Who should be doing the educating.
Who should be. Yeah. Well, should be home. And as I said to some young parents the other day, what are you doing? What are you allowing yourself to do? Already your children are in the hands of others more time than what they are in your own hands. And what's going to happen? And one can now see it from a social context that you look at these kids around Australia who are protesting for pro-Palestine, and you say to yourself, what's in their mind and what knowledge do they have? What knowledge of history, what concepts are they being led by the nose? Who is pushing all this, and where are we going to end up? And it's almost, I don't want to say it necessarily, but it's almost like creating a Hitler Youth and a concept and a theme that Jews, Israelis, they're bad people and we need to get them. And that's the attitude they have, because you listen to their slogans, they're very nasty hate speech slogans. Yeah. And what are the cops and the government doing about it? A great deal of nothing. I mean, our Attorney General, Richard Dreyfuss, is a Jew, but he hates Israel. And unfortunately, it seems to me the Labor Party and the Greens just have a disdain for Israel.
Yes.
And it's always promoting the Palestinian cause.
And I totally agree. And if you can, and it surprises me that conservative politics has never cottoned on to this. But, if you can get into the schools and you can control education, and therefore the minds of the generations to come, and you can get into the media and take over, get your top people in so they only employ like-minded others in every particular category, then if you can hopefully get a significant number in the judiciary, you can control the courts, and you can control the media, and you can control education, you got the whole thing sewn up.
Look, what you're saying is there's not one element of that is conspiracy theory. But of course
I see it every day.
But of course they, the government and others, the globalists, will say that it is conspiracy theory, that it's not happening and it's not right.
Oh, it's not. I don't believe that for a minute.
But you can see, and you're already a victim of cancel culture. How dare you have said what you said about Brittany Higgins?
Oh, I'd say it again. I'd say it again, and I'd say it to my own children.
Yeah, but look what happened to you. And now look what's happening to Alan Jones, these provocative allegations.
Yeah.
And why would Alan Jones be singled out? Because Alan Jones is a person who says his mind like you have. Alan Jones is a person who's got very definite opinions about things. And Alan Jones with his very definite opinions, is counter to the narrative that wants that they, well, let's say they will remain anonymous, but it's counter to what they want to be heard by the public. So it's the cancel culture. And I notice, interestingly enough, that the new word for this is disfavoured people. So, Jeremy, you're a disfavoured person.
Doesn't surprise me.
And
I'll take that.
And you don't care either, because you'll continue to be a disfavoured person.
Yeah.
No, I think we need disfavoured people.
But what they have to do with Alan Jones, he has a fantastic intellect. Now, they can't demolish him with a counter-argument. Because what he is saying, and I'll play a piece of Alan Jones. I don't know where he was. I think he was at a rally, and this little piece somehow got onto his television program, I think it was last week. And I think it is the most effective demolition of the climate warriors and their arguments and their slogans. He just takes them apart. Now, I can clearly understand that they've got to get rid of this man. They can't argue with him, so they have to destroy him. Now, I don't believe that they're going to be able to do it, but I think it's sad to watch.
But we've seen that with Pauline Hanson, a former fish and chip proprietor.
Yeah.
Who
Nothing wrong with selling fish and chips.
Oh, noble undertaking, and very much appreciated by the Australian public.
And I think she would, through that experience, know a little bit more about business and economics than a lot of those people sitting around her in Parliament.
But my comment, Jeremy, about Pauline is that she very, very unadulteratedly says what she thinks, but she also says what most of us think, but generally are too frightened to say it because we'll get bashed for it.
We must not be frightened, because if enough of us stand up and argue with them, they're probably cowards and will go away.
Yes.
We can't let them shut us up. That's the worst thing.
And I think when she spoke to the Senate on Wednesday, some stage, I did look at her speech on YouTube, and she gave them a wonderful spray. about these detainees
the
release of these detainees and what's happening to our society and the government and their behaviour to all this. And I think on this subject the government has been very wayward in their approach, very pedestrian in how they've handled it, and they've also been petulant because they've been caught out.
Yeah.
And the Labor traditional way of attacking the opposition is to start to get literally into the trenches and be nasty and look at Dreyfus the way he spoke to that reporter.
Yeah, the waving of the finger. And I don't know the lady's name, but I think she was from Sky News.
She was from Sky.
And she had the temerity to ask the Attorney-General a question or follow-up question. He was having none of it. Doesn't he realise that was why he was there?
Well, between him, three key people responsible for that debacle, the Attorney-General, Giles and also O'Neill, between three of them, you reckon that 1 out of 3 at least would be able to come up with a coherent, sensible explanation or some sort of mea culpa that they have stuffed up and we're going to fix it. But no, the de facto government of this country, which is the Liberal Party, is the one fixing their problems. They're the ones holding the ball literally and playing the ball to keep Labor afloat, because Labor is almost like a ship without rudder. And if I had any prediction for the new year, and based now that Parliament has risen for 6 weeks, and one would say, my God, why would Parliament be away from the action for 6 weeks when the country's in diabolical various issues happening at the moment? And you say to yourself, well, why are we having this long break with so many problems? Why can't we remedy the situation and fix it? But I think they'll just self-destruct is one of my predictions for the new year. They will just get themselves more and more into the mire of problems. They won't be able to resolve them. They haven't got I don't think on that front bench there's the intellectual capacity to run finance, immigration, all the various issues that we need to resolve. It's frightening to think how badly our education system is when one has to say the data is there. Why are we so far down the scale, 15 years of decline, and on one of the subjects, I think we're 79th on the planet. So we as a country, we thought we were smart people. But we're actually educating. Well, I'm not sure what we're educating.
Well, I mean, we're indoctrinating and we're skipping the education. We're more interested in having their hearts and minds.
Well, I think the educators are very interested in less contact hours with the children, more remuneration, and where do we do this? So where's in a commercial context, any of us know that an investment into the future has to be accounted for and monitored.
What I loved about that OECD snapshot of global education was, and you could almost predict it, that we were going backwards, like our productivity, which has been going back for 40 years, they tell me. But anyway, the one that is way up there, number one, is Singapore. Singapore. You know, and we've got people in this country who would criticise that place for being a police state, but, you know, they have a vision of the world and themselves in it, and they have discipline. I think they're very, very admirable. And when you consider that they have got none of the advantages or really the assets that we have, and what have we done with all our natural wealth?
Singapore, small island nation, progressive. I think my first visits to Singapore was in 1978. Changi Airport, the old airport. And it has progressed steadily, without hesitation, has moved forward. They have progressed up the scale of education, of commerce, of government. Lee Kuan Yew, who ran the show back in 78, eventually handballed it to his son and family. I think they're a very progressive society. Since 78, I've probably gone back there at least 15 times.
Is it a democracy, or how would you describe their system of government?
Well, I think it is a democracy. I think I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think they can vote. But
whatever it is, it works.
Well, the notion that it is a tough society on the public, and against probably that's the counter people who don't like the way it operates. So the suicide rate is very high there. It's a police state. But from my point of view, and that's as a tourist, but my observation after so many visits, one gets the feel of the place and one gets to talk to the people who live there. The people who are there, working, retired, are very, very comfortable with the society that they have.
Yeah.
The tourists who go there are likewise also very comfortable about it.
Safe. It's one of the safest places in the world.
Safe, comfortable, progressive, modern. The things that you need are at your fingertips.
Yeah.
They understand how to move people through airports. They understand the road system. They seem to understand the issues that make people click and make people feel good about themselves.
Yeah, they don't seem to do this business that we do and pride ourselves on doing it, this democratic business where we take one step forward and then we take two steps back and then we take a step forward and then we hesitate and then take another two back. So it's almost like we're never getting anywhere.
Well, look, I think a key driver of people, all of us, is that we have to principally have this good feeling about ourselves, good feeling about our family, good feeling about our community. And the elements of that are obviously finance, it's government, it's a number of issues. But ultimately, if we're not feeling good about ourselves, we're just not going to release the money from our wallet to the society and make things happen. We have to understand that our capitalist system, democratic system, rotates around dollars because everyone has, as you've said before, skin in the game, and people who are running business, they're there for a reason. We've got retail shops now with their stocks, their inventory ready to be sold for Christmas. You got the food organisations getting their Christmas hams and crayfish, everything else ready. There's an expectation that the rotation, the move off that is that the consumer will come in, buy the produce, money will be made, money's banked, money's reinvested. It's a circle of life.
People are employed.
And people are happy. And my feeling is at the moment, not a great number of people are feeling greatly happy about themselves or their families because everyone's getting squeezed into the narrow neck of the funnel. The social pressures, the disruption. We've just had this massive disruption, which we're supposed to be a happy, peace-loving community. But the referendum, which was a signature brand of Albanese, everyone has to be realistic that he almost banked his future on that. And I think he felt it was going to be a lay-down misère that he would win the referendum. Now, that's been run and lost, but the division and the angst and the issues that have percolated from that are still alive and well, and people aren't feeling good about that at all. People certainly aren't feeling at all happy about Welcome to Country, which I believe has been overdone to the nth degree. I mean, everywhere you go, it's Welcome to Country, and people are just sick of it, Jeremy. I mean,
two councils in Adelaide have said no to that. Playford and I think the out near Jamestown, whatever that council is called.
One of Adelaide Hills councils.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good move. I don't hesitate for one moment that we recognise our Indigenous population. We will do everything we need to do to help them. But there are ways and means of doing that effectively and doing it for the people in the areas where it's needed. The Pilbara, Wodonga, APY lands, you name it. There's lots of areas. We're not talking about inner city elites who are well and truly looked after because all the services that they need as Aboriginals or Indigenous to our community, they're all in the city. There's no doubt about that. They're all in the city. But in the areas where the areas are remote, they're the places where the services need to happen. And our Indigenous Affairs Minister, Linda Burney, I mean, you would think after towards $1 billion worth of government taxpayer-funded and commercial contribution for promoting the yes vote, after all that, you would think that by now the government would have some sort of concrete plan or some sort of roadmap to say to us, okay, well, the voice, okay, well, it's done, dusted, but this is plan B. Now, I haven't heard one word. No. And Linda Burney, one could say, is almost another one of the people on the front bench who've gone missing. Mm-hmm. And you say, why haven't we got plan B? Particularly when they were catastrophising, which really should be the word of the year, catastrophising as to what would happen if the referendum didn't get up. We would have public international ridicule. We would be in all sorts of trouble in terms of reputation. None of that happened. All of the things that they threatened us with never materialised, and they have to accept the will and judgment of the people. But gee whiz, you'd have thought Anthony's political antenna would have been a bit better, that he should have seen over the horizon what was coming. He must have been told and advised that this is not something that you want to go out there and die in a ditch over. But, you know, he obviously is a man who has a particular conviction in that department. I have a belief, Jeremy, that Anthony Albanese is a person who seldom holds up the mirror and looks at himself. A Prime Minister who now is being ridiculed through the media. The poster I brought in today was an old poster from the federal election campaign of May last year, and it was a Liberal campaign poster here in Adelaide, which is authorised by Sasha Meldrum, and the slogan is, "It won't be easy under Albanese." Yeah, well, how right were they? How right were they? Because it is not easy under Albanese. And for a Prime Minister who now is ridiculed, is now commonly referred to as someone missing in action, as some of his front bench people are, who are supposed to be guiding us and leading us. We are this ship without the rudder. If it weren't for the Liberal Party having a go to keep the oars in the water and paddling forward, we'd say, well, what is going on? What is going on? And I think he needs to have a lot of self-reflection. If they're ever going to get themselves back on track and be viable for the next election, a lot of self-analysis from him and the entire front bench. Because their performance has been absolutely appalling.
Well, we had John Quirk in the studio, sitting right where you're sitting. He's an old-fashioned Labor man. He was here with us last Friday, and he said that he doubted if the Labor Party could win the next election, but they might be in a situation where they have a minority government. But gee whiz, it's all their own doing.
Oh, look, it's self-induced. Self-induced. Any of the areas you look at, you have to analyse and say, why fundamentally did it fail? Why has this whole detainee issue failed? But
don't you think it's part of the ideology? They're ideologically predisposed, if you like, to welcoming boat people of the left, and you see it even in England today. Doesn't matter what you put up, and you try to sort of keep your borders safe and you keep your country safe. People of the other side of politics will say, oh, no, bro, open the gate, no problems here. So you've got, cost of living problems, and that's all, in my opinion, about the cost of electricity, which is multiplied through everything we do, and that's because of the ideological pursuit of renewables. And we, of course, had the voice, which was an ideological pursuit. So it doesn't seem to me that they're terribly practical. They don't sort of sit down and say, well, hang on, what is really best? What should we do? What should we have as goals? What are the threats and what are the opportunities and stuff like that? No, it's just ideology. I've never believed in anything, apart from perhaps free enterprise, or that the world doesn't owe me a living. But, to die in a ditch over something just because, it's in the manifesto, it's important.
Well, look, I think some of that is, it's like blood pumping in the veins. It's hard to get rid of. And
never thought about it like that.
It's part of the DNA of the Labor Party, this Marxist/totalitarian type of thinking.
Has that ever worked, by the way? Can you think of a a left-wing Marxist, Leninist regime anywhere in the world that hasn't brought misery and death?
I can't recall a society where it has worked over a longer period of time. And even if you look at China's embraced commercialism.
Oh, yeah.
They've embraced the free enterprise system. They know what it's about to make a buck, and they have done that effectively.
Well, the Chinese are rather like that, aren't they? I mean, they're very good business people.
And they're there for the long haul, Jeremy. But they're there for the long haul. But the ideology is a problem. It's like the Labor Party and the Greens just had this connection with detainees to allow this. Look, I think essentially it's human trafficking of sorts, whether it's pushed by your own government or it's pushed by foreign governments. But this human trafficking that people coming into a society like ours, our Western democratic Westminster type system society. Why would we take on 680 people from Palestine, the country where the average age is 19? They've had the conflict there for eons, and they're
going to have baggage with them. There's no doubt about that.
They're not going to have good baggage. I mean, there's good and bad baggage, but they're going to be people who fundamentally are not at all pleased about what's going on. There's a different lifestyle over there, different food, different culture. Why would we want to ship those people out of their own environment, 12,000 kilometres south?
Well, why would we want to do it? Good question, but I know why they want to do it. Free houses, money in their pocket, food in their tummy. I mean, that not a bad deal.
Well, it's not only that, but they're kindred spirits. They're like-minded folk in the region. Syria, Lebanon,
Libya,
Qatar, Egypt, all these. That's in their region. Same climate, same customs, lifestyle, behaviour.
Yep.
But they don't want them. Why don't they want them? The simple answer is because they know they're troublemakers.
Yeah.
So our government, no, and this is what Pauline Hanson said the other day. What about the public? Where's the public fit into a government policy? Our safety, our rights, our opportunities for the future.
Yeah. What's wrong with self-interest?
Exactly.
If you work out first of all what is good for your people and your country. And then fit that in with what international demands may be made upon you. But overall, I think they all should have to take a pledge when they enter Parliament to just simply do no harm. Do no harm. Now, I can't see why that isn't the fundamental thing.
Should be an overriding principle that guides them. And look, talking about the region that we just did, the Sudan, I mean, here's a subject that barely gets a mention in the press, but there's a civil military war happening in the Sudan as we speak.
Yep.
Started back in April of this year. There's, I believe, reports that over 12,000 people have been killed, and hardly a whisper. And the UN,
useless lot of fools.
Like their attitude towards Israel, doesn't want to get involved. And they didn't get involved in a lot of conflicts around the planet because they've got their pet subjects. And again, that's an organisation driven by ideology and beliefs, their own beliefs, which are not generally the beliefs and ideologies of mainstream people.
But we still have to pay almost $100 million a year to belong. And they'll lecture us on what we're doing with our Indigenous people. They'll lecture us on why we should be giving money to the South Pacific when we already give $2 billion.
Yeah. And when there's an opportunity, Jeremy, for them to lecture us like they are at COP28,
oh God, yes,
and there's a good positive outcome. Not that I was all that pleased about, potentially 400,000 people landing in Dubai and having a talk fest. I mean, massive enterprise. I mean, you don't get those sort of numbers at an AFL weekend, yet Dubai can host that. But there was a positive, I feel, that this feeling towards going nuclear. Yeah. Now, what a wonderful opportunity for Australia to get on board, because when the UN normally barks, Australia stands to heal, and we do things almost immediately. Well, there's our minister, Chris Bowen. No. I know better than everyone else. We're not going to go down that path.
No.
And yet that would be the logical, sensible thing to do.
I think they should have stuck that question on the end of the referendum about the voice. Just if you're going to spend $400 million or whatever it is on a referendum, get a few things sorted and find out really what people think and what people want. Let me ask you, what are you doing for Christmas? Are you going away, or are you just going to relax?
Well, I think last time I was in, I told you and the listeners that we'd just returned from Vietnam and Cambodia.
Yep.
So we are having a family Christmas at home.
Good day.
In the small family that we have. But I do have plans next year to go back to Cairns. Cairns, I think, is a wonderful spot. So there's a couple of weeks in Cairns just near the early part of winter. And then towards the middle of the year, Angie and I are heading off to Europe. And that'll be a commencement in Prague, going up to Warsaw, down to Auschwitz, down to Budapest. And then from Budapest, we're boarding a boat to sail up the river to Amsterdam. So it'll be version 3 of that one, because we've done that twice before. But a wonderful opportunity. So have some plans for the new year, and some local drives in the 4-wheel drive to get around, maybe up to the Flinders when it's a bit cooler after summer.
Well, have a wonderful Christmas, and I look forward to welcoming you back here in the Court of Public Opinion next year.
And I appreciate the opportunity of being here, Jeremy, and I wish you and the family and the team all the best for Christmas.
Bless your heart. Thank you, Les.
Thank you.